getting off the recruiting trail, and before I let you go, Ryan, I'm interested in your thoughts about jumping to the Big Ten, because it's something that we talked about a lot here at Mark Rogers TV at the time. From a Big Ten perspective, I haven't had a Maryland guy on for a while, because from a Big Ten perspective, I was a little bit perplexed. Because from a financial standpoint, the Big Ten's right there with the SEC in making more money than any conference in college football. I know that the thought was, hey, we grab New York and Baltimore and the Beltway, DC with Rutgers and Maryland. I think that was a little bit overplayed because of the professional status of those cities, and the focus being on the NFL and not Maryland football or Rutgers football. Probably more Maryland than Rutgers, certainly in the New York metropolitan area. But good move going from the ACC to the Big Ten.
I think, jury might still be out. I think in terms of basketball, Maryland's been a pretty big player every year since they joined. And I think in football, Maryland's been one of those teams that, I think if you're the Big Ten looking at Maryland, you're like, well, you get the right coaches there, everything works out just right, and Maryland becomes more of a threat than they've been recently. And yeah, the whole Rutgers thing sort of, I guess they couldn't just bring in one team; they had to bring in another one. And yeah, Maryland, the Big Ten's attitude toward Maryland is probably not, or fans of other Big Ten teams, their attitude toward Maryland might be, what kind of why are they here? But I think even Maryland has that same attitude toward Rutgers. But I think in terms of Maryland, it's been it's been a good move so far, because the ties they had to the ACC kind of weren't, they were eroding anyway. They weren't going to have the same rivals they used to. The league wanted to match them up with Pitt, and Maryland Pitt don't really have any history of that I can at least remember. But Maryland's been able to sell the Big Ten thing in football a lot, and I think that's helped. You can still, if you're DJ Durkin, you can sell that still and be like, to recruits and to fans, like, yeah, we're playing all these good teams. And they haven't been in the league too long where, they've had a couple down years, but none of that's been, irreversible.
Now, definitely, Ryan, it's obvious to you, you know this better than I do, is that the league is trying to pair you with Rutgers. Obviously, the two most recent entries coming in at the same time, both on the East Coast or close to the East Coast. And so they're trying to make that natural fit, while everybody else in the conference generally has that final week of the season pairing. Ohio State, Michigan on down the road. Penn State, Michigan State's kind of difficult. And I know that Maryland, going way back before your time as Eastern powers, Maryland and Penn State have a history. So maybe something starts there as well, if you guys are able to continue to rise in the Eastern Division standings. And the win over Michigan State, despite Sparty being down, still from a name standpoint, that had to seem like a big win as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The win over Michigan State, it was, I think everyone up in the press box, we all had our qualifiers. It's not the real Michigan State maybe, but that was definitely a big, that was a win in a night game too. And that was, Maryland needed the one win over, because Maryland's 3 out-of-conference opponents were not particularly tough. Got to start off league play with Purdue, and they had Rutgers at the end of the season. So you just needed that one win somewhere to be able to get bowl eligibility. And they were going to have to beat a team with at least some brand recognition, and ended up being Michigan State. And I think the Penn State rivalry talk kind of comes every year, at least, from the Maryland, news area. But I think that there's clearly some animosity between those two teams, probably a lot more on the Maryland side than there is the Penn State side. But it's close enough that I think it's really that's the thing Maryland fans at least would want to see a little bit more. And I don't think anyone gets thrilled about a rivalry with Rutgers, even though Maryland's 3 games against Rutgers at the end of the season have always been some pretty exciting ones. It's the Maryland Penn State thing is the thing that gets hyped a lot, and then there's a lot of backlash from everyone who says stop calling them rivals. And I don't think, I'm certainly not one who does call them rivals, but I think it's fun when the teams play each other.
And if I remember, you did beat them 2 years ago. So
Yeah,
it's not like Penn State's trampling you. I know that they obviously they had a much better team this year, and they beat just about everybody in the Big Ten. And Ohio State and Michigan have been extremely difficult to deal with. But yeah, you got that win against. And did you go to Ann Arbor 2 years ago and win
yeah,
that game?
yeah. That did it.
Yeah.
That somehow that did happen. Maryland, they got a couple. They got to win over that Michigan team. They got to win over that Penn State team. They capitalized when they could a couple years ago, and I mean Maryland was one of the most shocking things about Maryland's season this year. They were favored going into Penn State back in week 6, I want to say, and looking back, Penn State really found itself down the stretch, and with that incredible Rose Bowl game, that's just kind of one of the weirder things to look back as a guy who followed Maryland this season.
All right. It was also the surprise of National Signing Day. Maryland in the top 20 in the nation under the guidance of DJ Durkin. Good to talk some Maryland football with Ryan Connors. You can join him on Testudo Times, the SB Nation platform for Maryland athletics. Ryan, we appreciate the time.
Glad to be here.